那我们呢，今天呢主持的是飞达教育第136期的公益教育讲座。我们今天的主题呢是关于2025年小文书创作和大学专业选择的功课指南啊，所以呢再次的欢迎大家。我呢是来自飞达尔湾的中心主任朱迪。那今天呢，我和我的同事开谢老师将一起呢为大家主持今天的这样的一个线上的公益讲座。那稍后呢，我们也会有请出今天的重量级的演讲嘉宾，我们的房老师。
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Kathy. This is Judy. We both work at the IvyMax Irvine Center. Welcome to our 136 seminar slash webinar. Today's topic is supplemental essays and major choices when choosing a college. And later on, we'll introduce Dr. Spencer Fong and Dr. Trevor Chen to present later. Thank you.
好的哈，我们呢首先呢一起来去回顾一下8月份飞达教育这边我们组织的一些重要的活动。那8月份呢，我们带队去到了哥斯达黎加那我们的学生呢也有一个非常难忘的这样的一个全球领导力项目的这个营地之旅。与此同时呢，我们8月份呢还组织了湖南的第2期的微金融的项目。那同样又有一批孩子呢，在湖南这边收获满满。在8月底的时候呢，尔湾这边呢也是进行了青少年精英成长的这样的一个俱乐部的颁奖的活动。那我们也是有请到了重量级的嘉宾，包括城县的郡长。那尔湾这个城县的郡长，包括城县这边的市长和市议员，来为优秀的学生代表进行颁奖。那学生代表们也是展示了在暑期的一些重要的一些成果。
So back in August, we had two important events. There are GPL programs, one in Costa Rica and the other one in Hunan. And also in August, we had our Youth Elite Growth event where we welcomed Orange County council members to talk about voter registration and give out community recognition for IvyMax students.
是的那伴随着这样的一个活动呢，我们就开始了这个很紧张的这样的一个开补的申请季。那所以呢，那今天的这样的一个主题呢，也是特别为我们开补 season 的学生来去这个组织的。那提到了这个申请季，我们今年呢也会关注到申请上的一些标化成绩的变化的这个要求要求上的变化。我们可以看到越来越多的学校也都恢复了 SAT 的标化的这样的一个考试的要求。所以呢，也是请各位呢学生和家庭呢，我们来保持关注。好的，那我们接下来呢，就是有请出今天的重量级的演讲的嘉宾。那我们今天呢，请到了 Dr. Spencer 房博士。房博士呢是我们 IvyMax 的资深教育专家，然后长期呢也是从事我们 AP 的这个教学的课程。那同时呢，房博士呢也是 College Board 的这边认证的 AP Capstone 的教师那在房博士呢，他多年的这个从事于规划和升学的指导。那么，并且在文书这方面，尤其呢是特别的富有经验，所以呢，在他的这样的一个专业指导下面，那我们呢有很多的同学都成功进入到了这个知名学府哈佛呀、斯坦福、MIT 等等。那房博士呢是拥有 CMC 的政治学博士学位，并且呢是在多所加州的高校执教。所以呢，我们今天呢也是特别的荣幸房博士呢把他多年的一些宝贵的经验来去带给大家，和大家呢进行分享。尤其呢是针对于今年的一些文书上的变化和大家呢来去呢进行相关的分享与讨论。好的，那我们接下来的时间呢就交给房老师有请房老师。
谢谢居里老师，也欢迎大家今天晚上在一个周末的晚上来参加我们这么一个 info session。同时呢，我也必须感谢曲迪老师和 Kathy，还有薇薇老师，还有 Lance，来促成这一重大的活动。特别感谢Dr. Trevor Chen，今天晚上作为我们的 panelist。回头会积极的分享，或者是他的在升学申请方面的经验。So next I'm going to shift to English, and thank you all for coming and welcome. Um, so tonight the main agenda is pretty much about college application as a whole, with a focus on especially the supplemental essays, right? As someone who has been helping students with application over the years, um, I'm just here tonight to share some of my own observations and reflections, and hopefully, this would turn out to be of some practical use to our students. First, a disclaimer, I do not pretend what I'm gonna say is science, to say nothing of rocket science, with some mathematical precision, but rather some very general or even generic, tendencies existing in the current, or you say trend or probabilities, uh, when we are dealing with college applications. So in this sort of endeavor, I would say, really a sense of proportion and prudent judgment call are crucial to make things work. So first we count the cards we have, and then we make the best use of it, make the best bets, go all out, and wait for the results, and be cheerful. At least stay the course until, next March, in some cases, April. That's fairly important. It's a long march, in a sense. So to begin with, where are we? Right now is today is September 5th. We are facing our first real deadline for most early schools, majority early schools. The deadline, official deadline is November the 1st, with some um, October 15th. So we still have time, but do hurry up, right? And logically speaking, or you say logistically speaking, we should have, already came up with our own college list and majors, right? That's not the focus of tonight's talk, but I would just like to share some of my own observations. I would say a reasonable college list should be based on the one hand, our students' own academic and career goals, right? I'm not, totally a big fan of, follow your dream, follow your heart type. But nevertheless, why not? If we can afford it, right? For quite a few of us, we've got to make compromise or, to deal with certain trade-offs. But, your own ambition should be the guide. Second, um, our students' own achievements. This, of course, include, both academic and extracurriculars. I would put, your high school grades, GPA, your rank in your year or class, standardized test scores, competitions, internships, research, awards, prize, certain talents, and whatnot. Go through all those items, and based on those facts, we should be able to come up with a reasonable college list. I would say the key thing for 90%, if not 95% of all students should be, stratification. Stratification. In this field, we always talk about the so-called three tiers, right? Reach, target, and safety. But it's fairly hard to set a correct or accurate benchmark. But roughly, by guesstimation, using some proxies, we should get there. And another thing, how to select colleges in the first place, right? Several things we are paying attention to. I always say three things: ranking, tuition, and location. Of course, those things are connected. And here we prepared, next slide, please. Certain rankings from so-called authoritative sources, right? For rankings, we still have several separate rankings, right? Academic, and there's another one, thanks to Kathy, so-called, experience or student campus life, that sort of thing. But by and large, there's one research university ranking versus liberal arts college ranking. And for some students who are, whose main goal is to study computer science or a certain field of engineering, they might, pay more attention to that particular major, right? There's a major ranking. U.S. News and Reports, I believe, only offers like the first top 10 major rankings. But if you get beyond the paywall, then you can take a look at the overall list. But my bet is this, which is somewhat verified by experience. For most majors, the major ranking pretty much correspond to the overall ranking. There are exceptions, but that's by and large true. I can point out those exceptions, but that's not the major focus for tonight. And here's the top 30 overall ranking, mostly based on academic rigor, right? As you can see, for the first top 15 schools, Kathy, could you go back? Right? Only one public, or what we call state university, which is UCLA, right? And the others are all privates. And if you count the top 10, you could roughly figure out how many students they admit each year globally, right? Globally. My bet is like around 20,000. Number 11, Cornell admits the most, like 4 to 5,000, right? But then you have Caltech, 335, MIT, like 1,300 something, right? Most of those schools are around the range like 2,000 to 3,000 or even less. Right? So the competition is fierce, no less than, Beida or Tsinghua, PQ or Tsinghua, right? Another thing we noticed, if you could take, the first top 30 schools as a whole, you can see, you count the public schools, Berkeley's there, and UCSD, Michigan, UVA, Georgia, Virginia, and UNC, North Carolina, Chapel Hill, right? Not a lot public schools. And also another thing that Kathy pointed out to me was that NYU, New York University, has climbed up. It used to be like 35, sometimes even lower. I guess I believe the U.S. News and Report sort of adjusted their algorithm. Next one, please. This is based on student experience, student life, campus, all the amenities and facilities. Not greatly differing or say different from the previous list, but some notable differences, right? I'm glad. I mean, there are 3 Claremont colleges on the list. I was joking this because it's better than 5-star hotel cafeteria experience. Okay, that's about it. I mean, I would say, I mean, for most of my students, uh, that's not really their concern, student experience. But why not? I mean, if you can get both the academic rigor and fun campus life, why not? Next, please. Liberal arts college ranking, I have a liberal arts in a way. I graduated from Claremont Graduate School, but all of my advisors were CMC faculty. So I have a thing for liberal arts colleges, but I do understand, I know that many of our parents and students, they might not be big fans of liberal arts college. I always say, the upside of liberal arts college is because it's a small size, right? Once MC professor told me, yeah, the kids came here to be hugged, right? To be cuddled. That's the upside, which is also its downside, right? My niece a few years ago got into both CMC. I believe she got into Pomona as well, and also USC. The decisions are not that difficult to make for Chinese parents. Um, for these liberal arts colleges, you can see there are different types, right? You have a couple women's college or girls' college, and you have quite a few military academy, right? I just want to point that out. And next, I'm going to talk a bit about, the major and choose how to choose your college major or majors. Despite the fact that, quite a few of our students are applying for, non-declared and undecided and whatnot. But, even though you do so, a lot of times you are still required to answer the one major questions, right? They will just say, okay, if you haven't decided on a major, just to pick, the areas of interest and address, why. Um, oh, sorry, thanks for Kathy. I forgot to mention, the location factor, which is not that difficult to see, right? Basically, Midwest, 2 coast, East, West Coast, a little bit, Texas. That's about it. It corresponds to, the job market, right? It's kind of like in China where we say first tier, second tier cities, that sort of thing. Okay, back to the major choice issue, right? I would say in general, we should choose a major or related majors that are sufficiently backed up by our students' own academic and extracurricular accomplishments. We can worry about switching majors later on, except, of course, there are exceptions, those direct admission colleges, college majors, right? Those are in the minority. This is especially true for the top 10 schools, right? I was talking even for NYU to some extent. last spring, I was at Boston, met some of my former students who were at MIT. One got in with a math major, the other one was a bio major. And now both were doing EECS, right? Double E and CS. That's true with MIT, Stanford, most of the top colleges. One, they are privates, and two, you pay the same tuition and you could do it. Why not? There's no strong reason against it. You might run into some hurdles with certain public schools, but that's also true. Okay, next, I just want to turn to the rightful topic for tonight's talk, which is essays. Right.
Sorry, Dr. Fang. I think because there are a lot of Chinese parents, I might want to translate into Chinese, just to summarize everything. Is that okay?
Definitely. Thank you.
啊、好，我现在用中文稍微讲一下概括一下方老师刚刚讲的，就是现在9月初，学生们应该已经有他的 college list 了，就是他要申请的学校。然后从这里能看到综合排名，大多数还是按照学术强度来的。前15所里只有一所公立学校，就是 UCLA。前10所还是很 selective 选收学生非常的少。然后现在前30里，纽约大学爬上来，应该是从35爬到了30。然后第二个排名是按照学生体验，从这里加了一些小的文理学院，这有3所 Claremont Colleges，就是在加州的5校联名，其中的 Harvey Mudd、Claremont McKenna 还有 Pomona。然后就是文理学院，这些是一些比较小的，然后大多数是在东部，就是按照这个地图看上去，排名前30的大多数学校都是在美国东部。Okay, continue, Dr. Fang.
Thank you. As you can see, from this slide, the most competitive majors, don't get deceived by the whatever you call that, business, somehow very competitive, which is true. For non-STEM majors, business is the most competitive major. But then you've got to wonder, who are your competitions, right? What are your competitions? If you do the ChatGPT or whatnot, list the top 10 most competitive majors, the number one might be nursing. But then again, that's really a minority niche thing, isn't it? So despite the statistics or hard data out there, here's my own ranking. I would count CS and engineer still the most competitive. After that, pre-med, right? Certain pre-med majors. But then again, there's a whole range of pre-med majors, including hardcore, Bell Chem engineering and whatnot, and also, related peripheral pre-med majors. But that said, if you apply for, hard STEM theoretical, so-called basic science majors such as, math, physics, chemistry, it's still way easier than directly applying to CS or double E. Okay, within engineer majors, then you have a whole range, right? You can count the Cornell Engineer School or Purdue for that sake, for that purpose, right? Folks would say, economics is very competitive, becoming more competitive, or psychology. At least my experience, very limited sample, anecdotal observations that no, they're not. Yes, HYPS, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, they don't even have a business major. So what do you go for next, right? Economics, right? Um, Anyway, that's about the major options. Back to my own approach, or what if I were you, this is what I'm gonna do, right? You pick the major or majors that are sufficiently backed up, supported by your own academic performance and activities, right? So let's circle back again to the essay part, right? Um, the key point, at least to me, is that we've got to consider the purpose of college essays in general, right? For the college, admission officers or admissions in general, they want to determine or they're trying to figure out whether you're a good fit or not, right? From our own students' perspective, we're trying to present stories through on storytelling or narrative crafting. We want to bring out our own best qualities, right? Character, right? In a graceful way, or other people would say, humble brag or whatnot, right? But it really depends, right? It depends where we are. Um, Instead of just answer, those very, find the easiest prompts. That's backwards. That's backwards, right? We need to do very thorough brainstorming to figure out our best stories. When I tell my students to do, open-ended brainstorming, a lot of times it's like, what do you mean by the best, right? By the best. There are many other ways to try to figure it out or giving clues. Once we figured out our best stories, I would say, as a rule of thumb, 3 to 5, that's good enough, right? And the next step is pretty much to strategically allocate our best stories for each college, right? Again, do keep in mind this is the place for self-promotion. We are trying to advertise ourselves, right? Just treat it as as a company hiring process, right? So, of course, when we are answering those prompts, we got you know, to be on the point, right? To actually answer the question, right? But always keep in mind, we are also trying to present ourselves in a more than presentable form or manner. Best storytelling, best storytelling. Most of the times, best storytelling. But then again, there are exceptions. For example, there used to be 50 words limit or 100 words. Still, there are some. So not much we can do, but still we're trying to do our best. But keep those, I would say, tell my students, keep those principles in mind, which are super commonsensical, isn't it? Kind of, step back a little bit, about the patterns regarding the college essays, especially the prompts. What we call, continuity on the one hand and the changes over the years. Someone may have a longer duration or familiarity with the ComApp personal essay prompts. But over the years, at least the last 5-10 years, it seems to me, the 7 prompts remain the same, right? Especially the last one is pretty much open-ended, right? Whereas on the other hand, the college supplemental essays, of course, they change all the time. They change all the time, depending on the specific colleges, right? Chicago every year would come up with their new quirky prompts. But then again, they also allow you to use the previous year's prompts, isn't it? Isn't it? And, you know, Caltech would say directly, we change our prompts occasionally. So in general, it is unpredictable. But we do see, you know, the pattern, right? The pattern. Over the years, there are certain patterns, especially for the top schools. Top schools. You know, if I may say so, I would put it in a very Chinese way, right? You suppose you're the college admission AO admission officer, right? You look at the kids, the first several pages, demographics, academic, basically transcript, right? And then activity list, SAT score. After looking at those things, you roughly, you know, have an idea of the IQ of the student in a way, isn't it? So a lot of times, the college essays, especially supplementals, they're trying to ensure or make sure that your heart is in the right place, right? I will elaborate a little bit more later. Use the old, you know, the Chinese political jargon, 又红又专, okay, 不要白专. But of course, I mean, how to define the color or the symbolism behind the colors is a bit different in the two countries. That goes without saying. In terms of the allocation of your best stories, we would want the strongest story to be your personal essay, right? If I may say so, I would say the key thing about your personal essay is the moral of your story, not elegance or beauty per se, right? In general, I would say, you know, it's not a writing competition. And even though good writing, of course, is indispensable, you know, unless you're applying for some writing or, you know, literature majors. Yeah. Most important thing, good story. Good storytelling, you know, that's important as well, but I would rank it a little bit below the story itself. And with, you know, professional editorial help, most of our students would end up, you know, at least in terms of quality of writing, that shouldn't be a worry. Okay, now let me do some hair splitting. Purposes of college essays. Again, we're not talking about the main essay, the personal essay, the 650 words one. That one pretty much is about your character, right? So-called a personal essay, or we can use the less strong word, personality, right? Because when we say character, it sounds a bit too austere, right? Moral virtues and whatnot. But most times it is about those traits, isn't it? Character traits. Resilience, leadership, compassion, innovation, all sorts of things. Over the years, I've seen like so many different genres. There are certain existing genres in the you know, personal essay writing itself. But for the college essays, each college, at least the top colleges, nearly all of them have supplemental essays, right? With some exceptions. But for the top 40, I do not think there's even one without supplemental essays, right? Of course, that depends on how we're going to count the UCPIQs, right? But as a general rule, that is true. So what's the purpose or purposes of the college supplemental essays? From their point of view, the college admission, Harvard or Stanford, they want to know that you are a good fit for their school, right? If I may digress, a few years back, the CMC Claremont McKenna College student director of student affairs got fired because she used the word CMC mode, implicitly criticizing one of the students already enrolled for not fitting into the CMC mode and got into huge trouble. But the purpose of these supplemental essays is in general they want to know that you're a good fit, and to use the incorrect nomenclature, that you could fit in their mode, be it Harvard or Stanford, right? On top of that, of course, they want to know that you actually know something and you are eager or enthusiastic, committed to their school, right? That's the purpose of the early decisions, isn't it? Hence, all those why school, why major questions, right? Another thing, we could broadly say, your personality, right? Right? We want to make sure the smart part should be already taken care of by your grades, competitions, SAT and whatnot. But in a way, they also want to say that, want to see that you're a good team worker, hence all those collaboration essay prompts. You're fun and somewhat interesting. Those are what I call those cutesy questions. There are quite a few. For the tip top of those, the top tier Ivy League schools plus a bunch of Ivy League level tier schools, they also want to make sure that somehow our students have the kind of aura. Or you see, one of my friends who got into Harvard at the age of 15, he felt miserably not getting tenure from Yale, and he said, Spencer, I just don't have the Ivy, mannerism. Yes, but to boil it down to certain points, right? You got to be broad-minded. Hence, later on, we're going to discuss some of those, how to deal with high diversity, what I call high diversity essay prompts. Broad mandate, tolerant is the old word. What would be the more, anyway. So, and respectable. At same time, the idea of a British gentleman, right? You got to be a somewhat eccentric, quirky. That's fun. Definitely not kinky, right? If, it got to be serious in the general tone, but of course, I mean, there are certain essays would allow you, actually encourage you to bring forth your personality, bubbly, interesting, fun, and so on. So that's what I would say. I mean, from the college admissions point of view, that's what they want to see. I mean, you read all those prompts, And then you're going to think, right? Why all these, questions, right? Pretty much, the question, the prompts are a written substitution for actual interview, right? And for the top schools, they're still conducting interviews in person, still online as well. That's a separate topic, right? And the next thing, we're going to discuss a bit is that, the typical, or you see the common, the most prevalent types of supplemental essays, right? Here's the inconclusive or, not very comprehensive list or categories. The most common one is what we call Y school, Y major. Typical example, USC, 南加大的. They would just ask you, okay, why do you want to study a certain major at USC? Then you got to address both, right? You got to answer both. This sort of Y school, Y major questions tend to be formulaic. If you follow the formula, you ain't gonna mess it up. But it's even harder to really stand out. Over the years, I've seen, one or two cases, the student, went to the full 9 yards, with their dream schools with some success, right? One kid actually got hold of the, associated dean of the engineering school at Cornell and got a Zoom meeting. That's the beginning of COVID. And, Cornell still has those really long 650 words why Cornell essay. So that's good stuff, right? But for most of us, we just don't have, the time to do so, right? But due diligence, I would still say, um, at least do some college research, at least read your own major department's websites. Look into the courses, certain professors, their own research area and interest and so on, right? It really depends on, how many words they allow us, right? Cornell, Wisconsin, I remember, 650 words. That's a lot, right? That's a lot of words. Yeah. You have a lot of space to do the so-called matching, right? How their offering match your personal ambition and whatnot, right? Oh, thanks, Kathy. So, sorry to digress again, to circle back again about the trade-off between top competitive majors and top schools. I mentioned briefly earlier, for the top 10 colleges, there are no so-called, in Chinese 我们说冷门专业, right? And they pretty much allow you to change your major at will. There are some conditions, but the bar is pretty low, right? Yeah. Art history, what we consider a least competitive major. I always joke that that's the royal major. Look at the royalties, the British, the English royal family. Look at where they go to school, right? Guys went to Sandhurst Military Academy. Princesses went to Edinburgh, University of Edinburgh, studying art history, philanthropy or curator at Metro, right? Certain museum and whatnot, right? There's no, so-called least competitive majors in those super tip-top schools. But that said, right? Just commonsensically speaking, we are applying to CS major, and we got an APCSP, got a 3. That's just not very convincing, right? So, and next, the Princeton, yes. I know our students are super honest, so-called, intellectual probity or integrity or not. This is from last year's New York Times, one article asking an atheist, Kenneth Apaya, a former professor at Princeton. If you're interested in the personality, you can look it up. Basically, some high school students asking Professor Apaya, by saying, kind of line about my academic interest on college application. Of course, I mean, he's a professor now. I believe he now just moved to NYU. NYU pays way better. So, of course, he couldn't say, you know, that this is cheating up front. But in an indirect way, these are the talking points that he offered, right? Which is sort of very true, right? You got into college age 18, right? I'm still teaching as adjunct at university. First class asks student majors about their majors. Like 1/3 of them, they don't know. They don't know. And I once came across with some stats about Berkeley, right? 40% students graduated with a degree in a major other than their applied major initially. So you can see, right? Personal qualities way more than the major requirements, but you got to meet the minimum prerequisites, that's for sure, right? Okay, that's good. Thank you, Kathy. And what's the next slide? Yes, I already talked about this. Next. And this is covered. Okay, let's just stay on this slide for a little bit longer. But I'm gonna give an overview of the typology or the different types of college essays. I've mentioned why school, why major, and how to cope or deal with it, approach it. The second type is what I call low diversity essay. By that, I mean, you pretty much need to, at a minimum, you need to affirm the DEI doctrine, right? You don't have to say, write down 100 times Black Lives Matter. But you got to tell a story to show that not only you embrace diversity, equity, and inclusivity, but you actually are carrying those values out, that sort of thing. Different colleges, they approach the question somewhat differently. As you can see from, this is Harvard Supplemental #1. Harvard, if I recall correctly, 3 years ago, changed, or you say revamped the supplemental prompts almost completely. 3 years ago, it was super simple. 2 must required prompts. One's about extra intellectual / academic activities. That's not on the list, on the Common App list. A bullet point, it says so. You don't need to write in full sentences. And second one is, tell us about experience or job you hold and so on. It's similar to the Stanford one. But 3 years ago, they pretty much, if I may be a bit disrespectful, they pretty much copied Stanford prompts, certain Stanford prompts, not all of them. But this one's not super unique to Harvard because, as we're gonna see, and Yale has this one as well, Princeton as well. This is Harvard Supplemental Essay 1. As you can see, the wording's different from the next one, which that next one I would call, high diversity one, right? We can go back to the first. We need to read the prompt word by word and try to interpret, right? You can see the keyword, of course, is diversity, but then again, it's perspectives and experiences, right? In a way, especially after the Supreme Court ruling regarding affirmative action, we can see this is, there are certain backdoors for affirmative action, right? Isn't it? They all allow a place for you to tell a sob story if we really don't have one, right? This could be one of the places. I'm gonna bring my working class perspective, talk about, working in the restaurant, helping out and whatnot, right? Which is a very good one. Why not? Right? Again, you could see very similar prompts from Brown number 2 as well. Michigan number 1. How you're shaped, you are who you are today by this experience, right? When we come across with the word diversity, there's a superficial understanding, which is different colors, of course, skin deep understanding, which is the commonsensical understanding, right? But here, since it says perspectives, so it also includes different opinions, right? And then you're gonna say out loud, what are you gonna contribute to Harvard? This is pretty much the same as the last one of the Stanford long essay question. Right? How are you gonna contribute to Stanford? And next one, please. This is hard to deal with, to be honest. And over the years, I've seen students really pull it off very well. Because, if we are asked, a time that we strongly disagree, in strong disagreement with someone else, right? Idea or issue, it can't be, 2 plus 2 equals what, right? It gotta be somewhat controversial, right? Controversial issues. Over the years, then, the high stake ones are always a bit too emotionally charged. And for most students who grew up here, we've already been socialized enough or institutionalized enough to know what can be spoken of and what cannot, right? It's it's a land of freedom of speech, but you've got to suffer the consequences if you say certain things, right? So handle this with care. It's okay to touch on those certain so-called sensitive issues, but it really depends on how you're gonna frame it. And as you can see, what they are trying to get out of from you, it's not about the issue itself, but how do you handle it? How do you communicate, right? This is somewhat a new thing, I believe. It has something to do with the ever increasingly polarized climate of opinion in this country. right? We agree to disagree instead of demonize the other side. That's the most important thing. Civility, empathy, that sort of thing. Over the years, I've seen, I mean, students wrote on, vaccine, anti-vaccine, abortion, affirmative action, even. Some kids are bold enough, were bold enough to touch on that, and she really did it well. But there are again certain no-nos. Earlier I mentioned for students who grew up here, we know how to read the room, and we know that there are limits, and there are absolutely third real things that we can't touch. I ain't gonna give examples, but I'll say those generic things for now, for the time being. Other than the diversity genre, it could come in many forms, right? Other schools may ask, the community you belong to, your lived experience, and so on. Basically, your upbringing, and it's about what shaped who you are today. Certain other schools force students to write about overcoming challenge. That's MIT. And quite a few of my students were struggling with that, right? Thank God and thank to their parents, they have a very good life. Not, no sob story, why not? So we end up writing, messing up one math competition in middle school, or stage fright, this sort of thing. Still, I mean, they got in. So, okay, that's that. And then again, there's another type. I would call it, the artsy, the cutesy ones, or personality ones, right? The typical ones are Stanford. The middle one, they have 3 to 50 words essays. The middle ones, it's not here, sorry. The middle ones is the hello roomie one, right? Write a letter to your future roommates. As earlier I said, I made the accusation or charge that Harvard plagiarized Stanford, because Harvard's last one's also about, tell 3 things about yourself to your future roommate. This is where you can show your bubbly personality, right? There's almost a formula to answer this prompt, but you want to be creative. If I may share an anecdote. So there are still no-nos. I mean, even for those kind of like free response prompt. There's one year, one student wrote that I couldn't stand that people eat in the dormitory. I was like, come on, are you laying, are you laying rules for your future roommates? That doesn't, come across as a nice person. That's a bit too harsh. But yeah, that's just one anecdote. Okay, there are certain other, kind of quirky, or you call it creative or imaginative prompts. This is one of it. What they are trying to get out of you, pretty much your taste, isn't it? This is only 50 words. I believe this is not number 1, this is number 3. Stanford number 1 short response is about a global issue or societal issue. Second one is your last 2 sum. This is the third one, if I recall correctly. What historical moment or event do you wish you could have witnessed, right? 50 words, you can't say much. But this is a place where you can show your wide range of interests. Somehow, I mean, you'd better or you'd rather to make some personal connections with the event mentioned. Or, over the years, I've seen so many examples, from the hilarious to the serious to the tragical. Again, no correct answers, but plenty of pitfalls. Especially, we have to consider our audience, right? I don't mean this even earlier, make the implicit distinction between, ABC, American born bred, and new immigrants. I'm a new immigrant myself, but I'm just saying, I'm trying to remind some of our students to be culturally sensitive. There are certain things that we want to handle with care. I'm not going to mention the specifics. And what's the next slide, please? Okay. So next, some so-called case studies, right? I've sort of give a very cursory summary of the typologies, different types or categories of supplemental essays. And here is Yale's supplemental prompts. Actually, this is the last one, I believe, 400 words. And out of the 3 questions, you can pick one. Again, if I may repeat myself, keep in mind always, while actually answering the prompts, you also want to maximize your self-promotion, which means take every prompt as opportunity to show off, to showcase yourself. Okay? So that's gonna determine how we triangulate, which prompt we're gonna pick if we are allowed to pick, pick one out of 3 or pick 2 out of 5. Different colleges, they have different rules, right? Look at this one, right? The first one again is the high diversity one. How do you deal with opposing views, right? It's 400 words. You got to somehow spell out the actual issue. What's the point? What are the points of contention, right? First, the issue is itself, and more important is the manner, how you treat or communicate or handle, the folks who are disagreeing with you, right? You are able to carry out a courteous, civil, productive discussion, right? Otherwise, it's gonna be a screaming match. And college professors, I teach American Gov. It's almost part of my first meeting is always to lay down the rules, be civil. It's a civic class basically, and it's part of the so-called mannerism, right? Anyway. So the second one pretty much is about you are who you are, sort of like your identity, isn't it? Community. Again, this is a place for bragging somewhat. Your own club, typical, very typical, right? You're the president. Pen asks you to write a letter to someone, and you know how you're going to do that, right? The third option is fairly similar to the what I call, actually, it really depends on what story you're going to say, what you're going to bring up, right? It could be either 2 or 3. It could be very similar. Could be the same story, can fit both prompts, right? But then again, here you have to address and mention Yale, right? Because it's about contribution. This is Stanford last one. Right? You tell a story about yourself, your lived experience, and then you make connections. What are you going to do at the Yale? You're going to join this and that club, right? This or that program. Those are typical. There's once again I asked some Wharton students, what did you write? I mean, for the pen number 2, similar. Okay. And next, please. I'll try to wrap up. You know, Chicago is some kids love it. Others just absolutely hate it. It's so extraordinary. But then again, each year they give you 6 prompts plus like the COMAP prompts, the last one, you can pick. You can even make up your own, right? Or go through the previous ones. And this year, I believe this is number 2 and 3? But the first one is about telepath, right? Uninvent something. I mean, for the Chicago prompts, you can really go through the easy to answer prompt, right? Some students, again, they're still trying to at least stick to one model, treat every prompt as as an opportunity for marketing ourselves. But this one, you could totally do it in a impersonal manner. But still, indirectly, you show your personality, isn't it? Right? There's certain directionality. The penny, the second one, what's one objective phasing out? Right? If I were forced to answer that question. I'm a big fountain pen fan. So I would say probably something related to calligraphy or writing, with typing and whatnot. Then you can go on and on about the benefits, right? It's not only about beautiful handwriting. Calligraphy is good for your soul, for your mind, and blah blah blah. Last year or the year before, they had one about Nobel Prize. If you have the power to create another discipline, what are you gonna say? What are you gonna come up with? Still another one's about wisdom teeth. What advice I could give you? My favorite is what does Plato, Plato, Aristotle, Plato, have to do with Play-Doh? The kids, um, you know, um, kneading, right? Play-Doh. I also almost certain that some the Chicago social thoughts committee on social thoughts folks get involved because you've got to know something about Plato and the forms and the ideas and to be able to talk about Play-Doh, right? And the potter, you the clay. If you have some biblical knowledge, you could totally make those kind of fancy connections. But then again, I would say don't freak out, don't panic, no need, right? Find this one, you can definitely find an easy to answer prompt and show off your knowledge or quirkiness, eccentricity, and so on. And do we have more? Okay. Oh, I don't mean to disrespect University of Southern California, but I felt like that, you know, we've been going on and on about HYPS and MIT. I don't want to be a stuck-up snob, right? US is a very respectable higher education and closer to most of us. I just want to, pick this one as example, right? This is what I call the TED Talk prompt. And I'm just going to share how I would approach it, right? You can read the prompt word by word, but also there are other, rules. I mean, basically, there's a link connected in this prompt, basically saying that to say something new. Don't over reuse things you already said elsewhere in the application package. Read every word, right? One issue or passion you care deeply. A topic, right? Uh, that's capable of sparking intense interest and continue the conversation, right? 10 minutes, a million people. What are you going to say? What are you going to say, right? Stanford number one short response is also about a societal issue, but this is 250 words, right? It can't be our acne or pimples, right? That's too personal, right? And if we keep talking about climate change, that sounds a bit too, vague, isn't it? So try to figure out there's some topic that could potentially attract attention of many people, a million people. But also, I always encourage students to make use of this prompt, turn into self-promotion. Homelessness is a prevalent issue. I don't mean it cynically, but you know, fund the issue, analyze the issue, propose solutions. Along the way, I've done my small part, insignificant, however. Um, yeah, I mean, again, I would say this is just something commonsensical. Uh, I guess, I mean, all I have shared tonight is gonna boil it down to um, one word, commonsensical or practical. I've already kind of covered this. Are there any more? Oh, we can skip this. I'm gonna close my talk for now, and I believe Miss Cassie or Miss Judy has something to share with us. Thank you.
好的哈，再次感谢房博士的精彩的演讲。那把他多年的这样关于文书的题目的这样的一些分析呢，那相信呢，通过房老师的这样一个精彩的分享，那我们的家长和学生呢会有很多的一些受益。那我们提到了文书的重要性哈，那通过文书呢，可以更好的呢能够去 self promotion 自己。那我们提到了要讲好自己的故事，那这里面的各种素材就少不了。那我们在高中期间，那这么几年的这样的一个经历体验当中，那我们要尽可能多的去通过不同的活动来去积累自己的素材，来去讲好自己的故事，从而呢能够更好的来去这个 self promotion。好的，那我们飞达教育集团呢，也是一直致力于能够提供给孩子们不同的、更为丰富的，而且呢有这个更多的这种意义的课外活动。那这里面呢就会包括，那例如说我们秋季呢会开我们的这个 AP 的学分课程那如果感兴趣的这个家庭呢，可以来联系我们的服务老师。以及呢，我们 AMC 那这个飞达的各个中心也是我们 AMC 的这个 test location 考试中心，所以呢，大家呢也可以根据自己的需求呢来去这个注册。那我们接下来在10月份呢也会来去这个展开 ACSL 的那这样的一个竞赛的相关的一个组织的活动，所以呢，对于 Computer Science 感兴趣的同学呢，也可以呢来去考虑。以及呢，那例如说像我们的 SAT 的这个辅导班，那也会呢这个陆续的去在不同的中心进行展开。 那在秋季当中呢，我们的 FRIP 的项目，那很多同学呢都非常的这个关注哈。那我们呢也会结合大家不同的专业来去推出呢更适合每个孩子的你这个个性化的、独特的这种科研的项目。那以及呢，我们也会给提供孩子们来去发表自己文章的机会啊，所以呢，在我们 Franklin 的Kennedy Foundation 这边，我们呢是有机会呢，优秀的学员呢可以来去发表自己的这样的一个研究的成果。那在我们冬季的时候啊，寒假我们也会持续的推出线下的全球青少年领导力的这样的一些项目。那我们有去湖南的哈，这个微金融的项目，那么也会有去这个 Costa Rica 的项目，然后以及呢 Nepal 的这样的一些不同的项目。所以呢，也是感兴趣的同学和这个家长，我们呢可以呢来去跟各个中心的服务老师呢来去了解。好的，以及呢，我们第二本正式的这样的名校申请文书的这个作品集，那我们呢也是开始发售，大家呢可以在 Amazon 上面来去找到这样的一个作品集那是这个第二版的，来去呢做一个参考和这个学习。那我们也再次的这个邀请各位呢来去关注飞达教育的微信公众号。那我们呢也会这个经常性的来去推出有这个含金量的各个方面的一些信息呢，来去助力于大家在申请在这个规划的过程上面能够获得更多的信息和资讯。好的那以上呢就是我们今天呢想和大家呢去来分享的一些内容。那我们接下来看一看是 Q&A 的环节啊。那如果呢有同学和家长感兴趣呢，可以来去提出我们的问题。开始可以来。嗯嗯，看到问题。
大家如果有问题，可以打在这个 chat 里，或者直接打开摄像头讲话。哦，好，观众讲不了话，只能在这个 chat 里打。
好的，那在我们再来稍等哈，稍等这个30秒，看看在聊天区有没有这个问题。
如果我们目前没有问题的话，可以再加我们的微信，然后进一步咨询。
好的哈，那如果呢在聊天区没有更多的更多的问题的话呢，那我们今天的线上的有一个问题
OK，标题中 direct admission 和 undeclared 的差别是什么？可否解释一下？Declared and undeclared。
我来说吧，direct admission 的话，是指那些非常有竞争性的专业，比如说卡内基梅隆的 CS 专业啊，就是回头转进去的难度会非常大，他跟你说是不可能的，对吧？有些学校是公开说的，有些学校不那么公开。还有的例子，你看一下 UCSD San Diego 的某些专业，它的官网上都有的，对不对？所谓的 impacted majors。还有的例子就是Berkeley 的CS，但是呢，很多时候官网上是一种说法，我自己有学生是吧？ 比较冷门的专业进去了，还不止一个呢，后来也转到 CS 了，Berkeley 的。还有一个例子是 Michigan 的某些专业，特别是在那个 Russ 商学院。USC 的话对 Marshall 有限制，商学院。相比较而言的话，NYU 对 Stern 的限制要低得多得多，可以考试。这个是指 direct admission，就类似于这个就更类似于大陆的咱们那个按照专业录取了。undeclared、undecided 这个有几种情况，我最简单的来讲吧。学生申请大学的时候，只是申请这个大学，根本没选专业，这是一种。也叫 undeclared，也叫 undecided 都有。那这个时候会怎么算呢？对吧？还有一个，很多人这么做，但是我一般不是很，我个人不是也很建议这么做，是因为，嗯、因为最后的话，你也会被就是放到那个一般专业的那一堆里边啊，他们会这么考虑的。这是一种大部分的情况，就是说在申请的时候没有专业，但是个比较麻烦的问题，就是说你到时候还是会被逼着去写，写那种为什么选取某个专业的文书，虽然它换种说法，这是 UIUC 就是在 Illinois Urban Champaign 的那个，他们的文书几乎是必须回答的。还有一种 undecided，举个例子吧，Cornell 的 Engineer School，它下边有五六七八个细分的 engineer 专业啊，对吧？CMU 的计算机 CS School of Computer Science 下边也是这样，但是它也给你一个选项，就是 undecided。反正我就是升计算机学院或者是工程学院，但是至于说是学航空航天工程啊，还是 nuclear 啊，还是 civil，还是 environmental，还是 chemical，mechanical，这个我现在还定不了。所以我会一般讲是这两种情况，就是关于 undeclared 或者 undecided。呃，我希望能够I hope that I clarified the distinction a little bit. Thank you.
谢谢方老师。下一个问题，Will this presentation be posted in somewhere? It won't be posted public online, but if you reach out to an IvyMax staff, they can send you the link. 就是这个今天的视频，录的视频不会发在网上，但是如果您给 IvyMax 的员工发短信要这个 link 是可以发给您的。
好的哈，那如果没有更多的问题呢，那就欢迎我们的这个家长和同学们啊，如果有这个任何的关于升学方面的咨询的话，然后呢，我们可以来联系IvyMax 各个中心的服务老师，然后以及呢，在加州之外外州的，包括美国的这个其他地区的啊，我们包括一些中国的同学们啊，包括在其他的这个州的同学们，也呢可以来去添加我们的。这个邮箱的地址啊，来去取得相关的联系。好的，那我们今天的讲座呢就到这里，那再次的感谢各位啊，好，谢谢大家，我们下次见，下期见，
谢谢老师们。
谢谢，
OK，谢谢 Trevor，还有
谢谢戴维老师。
Cindy 老师和 Kathy 老师，还有我们的 Vivi 老师还在吗？OK，那我们回头见，
好的，
好，辛苦了，谢谢，
拜拜，
谢谢 Trevor 老
谢谢
师。
Trevor 老师，王老师，拜。
拜拜。